In this week's Parsha, Parshas Boy, right before Makas B'chayros, HaKadosh Baruch Hu speaks to Moshe Rabbeinu and tells him to ask Bnei Yisrael to borrow from their Egyptian friends gold and silver and jewelry and all these different things, riches, that eventually Klal Yisrael would go out with because they'd keep it. And Rashi explains why Hashem had to ask Bnei Yisrael to do this. And he says, because Hashem promised Avram Avinu that his children would be foreigners in a land and work for them and be slaves to them for 400 years, and after that they would go out with Ruchush Gadol, they would go out with great wealth. So Rashi says that if HaKadosh Baruch Hu only fulfills the command of Va'avodum v'ino isam, that they would serve the Egyptians, the Mitzrayim, and be afflicted by them, but wouldn't fulfill the command of Va'achrei chein yatzu b'ruchush gadol, that after they'd go out with great wealth, then Oisoi Tzaddik Avram, that Tzaddik Avram Avinu, their great-great-great-great-grandfather, would be upset. He said, what do you mean? You promised me that they would be slaves for 400 years, but then you said that they'd go out with Ruchush Gadol, and yet you didn't keep to that promise. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, to keep my promise to Avram Avinu, so he shouldn't complain. That's why Klal Yisrael should borrow gold and silver, so that after they leave Mitzrayim, they'd go out with Ruchush Gadol. Frekte Ksav Sefer, an amazing kasha, said that's why Hashem has to keep his promise? Because Avram Avinu is going to complain? Hashem has to keep his promise anyway. Hashem made a promise. Hashem has a word. He said it. He made it. He's going to keep it. Hashem is Nemon L'Shalim Sachar. Hashem is going to keep his word. So if Hashem is going to keep his word, then why is it only because Avram Avinu is going to complain? Says the Ksav Sefer something beautiful. He says, Ruchush, wealth, is relative. What is wealth? Who is wealthy? Someone has $1 million or someone has $1 billion? To someone that has $1 billion, $1 million is nothing. It says that the Klal Yisrael were slaves to the Mitzrayim. What is wealth to a slave? Extra few pieces of bread, some extra cup of water, a nice hot coffee that they don't get to have? Says the Ksav Sefer that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, of course, was going to give them Ruchush Gadol, of course was going to give them great wealth. But he wanted to give them great wealth according to the standards of the Oisher Avram. Avram Avinu was a wealthy man. He had cattle and he had flocks and he had servants, he had maidservants, he had sheep and he had cows. Avram Avinu was a very wealthy man with livestock and everything. According to his standards, we should go out with Ruchush Gadol. You should borrow gold and silver and jewelry and have the greatest wealth in the world. That's what Hashem wanted Avram Avinu to be happy with. Eighth Day put out a song quite a few years ago called Abraham. And in the song, it goes, Abraham, are we the children that you dreamed of? Are we that shining star you saw at night? Avram Avinu looks down at us. He is the father of our nation. And we today, living today, can't imagine. It's generations and generations past. Are we living up to his standards? Yes, when we went into Mitzrayim, we got the Ruchush Gadol. But Avram Avinu symbolized chesed, Torah, Tefillah. He enacted Shachris. He was the embodiment of Shachris. He made Tefillah. Avram Avinu kept Kol Torah Kula, the Gemara in Yuma, Daf Chav Ches says. Avram Avinu was Chesed. He was the paragon of Chesed. All three pillars Avram Avinu had. He was the father of our nation. But when looking down, yes, we got the Rechush, but do we keep to his standards of Torah, of Tefillah, of Chesed? We have to strive to be like Avram Avinu, to connect to that past, to that generational gap that we are missing, and we should taka b'zoiche to greet Avram Avinu and all the Avos and Moshe Rabbeinu, and taka b'zoiche to the coming of Mashiach Tzidkenu b'mher v'yameinu. Amen. Have a beautiful Shabbos.